Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to the season finale of my podcast, SolFul Connections. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the virtual room and I'm going to ask people to introduce themselves, maybe tell a little bit about themselves, and share something that they've learned in 2021. Something that they're taking away from 2021. And you can say something else if you prefer. I'm going to just tell you that the reason for this whole podcast is kind of like this. If you woke up tomorrow on a little island and you looked around the island and you saw some water and you started to gather some berries and live on this little island, and you're making your way day to day, and all of a sudden behind a bush, when you're foraging, you see some other people. I would think that you would say, hey, you guys, what are we doing here? What do you think we're here for? What's your experience been like? How do you think we ended up here? That's kind of in a nutshell what I intend for this podcast, to just kind of say, I don't know, here's what I'm doing and here's what I'm thinking. What about you? And I think that there are people who are completely content to stick their toes in the water and forage every day and not even wonder about that. But I'm just not one of those people. And that is the story of SolFul Connections. So I am going to go around the room and just ask you to introduce yourself and maybe just say a little something, and then talk about maybe what you're taking away from 2021. And I'm going to start with the person I have known the longest. And that would be my sister, Melinda Buff. And then after Melinda, I'll ask Peter Buff, since they're sitting together. They showed up and oh, by the way, also say where you are, because I think that's kind of cool.
Okay. So I'm Melinda. I'm Amanda's older sister. We are in Sable Forks, New York, which is half an hour from the Canadian border. It's snowy here and cold. This is a little nepotism here. Amanda asked me to join there. I'm retired. And kind of this year has been a rough year. We moved up here and it's gorgeous. We live on close to 50 acres and top of a mountain. It's everything we've always dreamed of, but we've also experienced a lot of loss, sudden loss of friends. Just thinking about it makes me want to cry. So it's been a rough year. It's been a year of loss and learning that it doesn't end. So coming out of next year's going, and I also just broke my wrist, so that didn't help. So going into next year, it'll be learning how to use my right hand again and figuring out how I can contribute to society, yet at the same time in the middle of it's very difficult. Prior to the pandemic, I'd been doing volunteer work, but I don't feel comfortable going out and doing any volunteer work until it's safe again. So.
Peter?
Yeah, excuse me. So Brad, it looks outside like what your background is right now. There's a storm moving in. Yeah, I feel extremely fortunate. I'm retired too. And we're both, Melinda and I are very lucky. But like she said, it's been a horrible year in a lot of ways. We've lost, my best friend died all of a sudden the day he was supposed to come up and visit us in September. We have had a lot of friends recently die of cancer or be diagnosed with cancer. It's a point in life that I never thought I'd reach. In my 20s, 30s, 40s, I really didn't think about death. And now I have lots of people in my sphere who have died or are going to die and know pretty much when they're going to die. And it's gives me a different perspective on a lot of things. So it really makes me think about what I want to do with the time that I have remaining, because we all have an expiration date stamped on our forehead and we don't know when it's going to happen, but every day is a gift. And I don't want to squander the time that I have left. And like Melinda, I've done volunteer work in the past. There's a hospice that I would like to work for up here, but right now, all the hospitals in our area are filled with COVID patients.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's like all of us, we're going through this huge transition that is life altering on so many different levels. So I think going into the future for 2022, I would like to continue to develop my understanding of the mind and the body. And I really look forward to interacting with people socially as soon as I feel comfortable, because I really miss that. I feel like we live in a spaceship. And I think probably people can relate to that. I feel like we're just sort of self-contained and we're riding this thing out. And that date when we're able to move forward with our lives, is constantly being pushed forward. So it's really important to move forward with your life, no matter what the circumstances are. But it certainly has given me a perspective about what's important to me.
Very, very true. I mean, that's at the end of the day, there is really kind of nothing more important than, I guess, valuing each and every moment. I will move on to Linda Poya.
Hello, I'm Linda Poya, mom of twin girls and a son. The girls are 23, which I can't believe. And the boy, as we call him, just turned 18. I have been back to work the last year. So we have a very small office. So there's only 4 of us. So we've been back to work. My husband, who works for the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, as you can imagine, has not been back to work. And they don't foresee that happening anytime in the near future. So I think 2021 for me was getting back into, it's very different to work from home versus to work in, actually get up and leave and go to the office and work in the office. So a lot of this year has been readjusting again back to being back at work. I certainly enjoyed sleeping in when I could work from home, which I can't do anymore. But on the other hand, I do kind of enjoy talking to the, 2-3 other people in my office and having kind of those relationships again that I didn't really have, obviously, for well over a year. And I think in 2021, we're sending our son off to college. In 2022, we're sending our son off to college, and he's the last one to go to college. So it's going to be a lot about readjustment for me, redefining maybe a little bit about who I am and what things will be important to me now that the kids are pretty much self-sufficient and going to be on their own. The daughter some of you met real quick as she helped me fix my thing was Ashley. She's going to be home with me, so I won't be a complete empty nester. She's going for her doctorate, but she's living at home while she does it. So I'll still have, a child here, but as you all can all imagine, at 23, she's obviously very self-sufficient. So with the boy finally leaving, I think 2022 for me is going to be looking forward to kind of figuring out who I am without the kids, what's important to me now, what direction I kind of want to go in with some of the extra time I'll have.
Thanks, Lynn. And now I'm moving on to Chuck Hall.
All right. Well, thank you, Amanda. I'm Chuck Hall. I work as an executive coach and team dynamics consultant. I work primarily with small up and coming business executives. And I have to tell you, at the end of 2020, I was really sick. When I got to the emergency room, the first doctor I saw informed me of just how lucky I was to be alive and functioning, given the state of health that I was in. And I walked into the emergency room. So I knew I was sick, but I didn't know I was that sick. So that kind of set the stage for 2021. It's been a time of healing and regaining my health. I've come to a much greater appreciation of my health in the past year. And out of this, it's a little bit of a cliche, but I feel like it was an opportunity for reinvention. And I feel a little bit like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. I have really done a lot of reflection this year, and I have kind of redefined, or I'm expressing my principles or values in life now in 3 points. The first one is learn, the second one is care, and the third one is act. So I'm really aiming to put those into place in the new year and really live out those principles. I feel like a couple of friends of mine told me recently that they are looking so forward to retiring and stopping all work and just kind of relaxing. I feel just the opposite. Because of the work I do, I feel like 2022 is going to be like the best year of my life. And I feel really excited about the things I'm going to do. And Peter, when you were talking, I know this isn't part of what you asked us to do, Amanda. I'm going to go off script here.
Go, please.
But I'm reading a book right now that what you said really resonated with me. It's called Falling Upward, A Spirituality for the Two Halves of Life by Richard Rohr. And it really talks about, the first part of our life, we spend all of our time, we're building and growing and establishing ourselves and having our families and doing all these great things. And then in the second half of life, we kind of settle into living a life of meaning and reflection and giving back. And that's really where I feel like I'm at. And thank you, Peter, for prompting those thoughts with what you shared.
Thank you. Oh, and Chuck, where are you?
Oh, so I am in Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, I'm in Conyers, Georgia, but nobody knows where Conyers is.
Got it. Well, we're going over to our West Coast person, Roseanne.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay, so I'm on Bainbridge Island, which is just a little island outside of Seattle. So when I go to the beach and I look across the water, I see the whole skyline of Seattle. So it's just a little bedroom community right outside of Seattle. Most people work in the city. And if you want to live in the country, you kind of live out here where we live, surrounded by, 30-foot trees and evergreens. And it's very beautiful, but it's raining, and it rains every day, and it'll rain until July 4th. So I personally, for 2022, want to move. I mean, that's my whole goal. I mean, it's really pretty here, but I seriously miss my best friend of 50 years, Amanda, and a lot of you
Weird
guys.
because I'm only 49, but go on.
Oh, you're so funny. We knew each other before we were born. But, it's just, and I've known a lot of you guys for a long time. It's really nice to see everybody. I have to say, it makes me really, really happy. But my goal is to try to get back east, closer to my family and my friends. And, it's nice here, but our jobs here they've really deteriorated. A lot of them have been lost. My husband and I both, due to COVID. We're in the restaurant business, so we just took a huge hit. But, I'm trying to look at that differently in 2021. Like, maybe this is the opening that we both needed to move, to go where we really want to go. our good jobs aren't holding us back anymore because they're kind of gone. But so listening to like Melinda and Peter, it kind of made me think about like transition. I feel like I'm in a transition too. I don't know what's going to happen next or how it's going to go. And there's so many different ways it could go. And, you know, I guess I hope I'm not disappointed ultimately if it doesn't work out. But, you know, it makes me a little emotional to think, you know, to like, for instance, my mother, she's 94 and she has Alzheimer's, and I feel like I'm missing the end of her life, and I really want to get back, you know, to seeing her because the time is so limited. So I'm very hopeful that we can make a change, but I'm praying about it. You know, if it's God's will, we end up where we're going to be. But I hope it's with you all. I hope it's closer to every single one of you. Even you, Chuck. I wouldn't mind being in the South. So yeah, that's the goal. Kind of get out of the Pacific Northwest and get closer to my people. That's
Thank you.
it. Yeah.
Perfect. Natalie?
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Natalie Napoleon, and Amanda and I met pretty much the day I moved here. I guess it's almost been 13 years ago at the bus stop, and our daughters became friends instantly. I remember we turned around, they were holding hands, and we're like, okay, well, we'll be friends too.
Right.
Well, you were an editor and I was a photographer, so it was just match made at the bus stop. So, so for me, I am also in a transition. And my oldest two are in college on the personal side. My oldest two are in college. My youngest is a junior in high school. So, you know, pretty soon she'll be in college. I'm sure I'll blink my eyes and she'll be going to college. So a lot of emotion has been coming up around that, which I never expected to feel. So it's interesting. It's really trying to figure out who I want to be, like you said, Linda, without them. Who am I? You know, if I'm not a mom with 3 kids trailing behind, who am I? So, and that also feeds into my business life, where I am a photographer, but I was more in the service industry, and now I'm transitioning my business into the educational world. So I'm looking to become known as an educator. And so that's an interesting transition too, because it's like starting business all over again from scratch. So it's figuring out who I am as a person, and who I am as a parent, and who I am as a business owner. So for me, what I learned this year was that the person that I have been in the past that got me to where I am today is not the same person that's going to get me through these next steps in my life. So I have to figure out who she is. And I really want in 2022, want to step into my power and really take ownership of my essence and my whole purpose for being here, and make sure that every moment of the day is valuable. And that doesn't necessarily mean packing it full of activities. It can just be to sit still and meditate on what's happening. But to feel like, you know, Peter, at the end, that I did everything I wanted to do and did everything to the best of my abilities. So that when I look back, or when somebody else looks back on what I did, they can say, sure, she was true to herself the entire time. And she always put her best foot forward whenever she possibly could, or when she knew how to. So that's my story.
That's great. So I'm moving on to Chuck Pressler. And Chuck, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, the dogs were barking.
Yeah, my dog started out this podcast barking, so she's upstairs now, trapped.
Well, hello.
So, yeah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Chuck Pressler, the executive director for Central Bucks EMS. That's my day job. Where do I start? Well, I got a lot of hobbies. I don't, I don't know where to
Start, you know what? I'll tell you where to start. Start with the fact that you are sitting in
Sorry.
a farm. That's okay. He loves his dogs. They're joining in the podcast. And then kind of talk about, I know what to say. Chuck has a lot of hobbies. He's an actor, he's a beekeeper. But Chuck, talk about this one thing that when you were on the podcast, this didn't make it in the podcast. You told me about this after the podcast. So Chuck is a beekeeper and he makes honey, and he also has a nonprofit called, is it Honeybees for Heroes?
Yes.
Okay. But because beekeeping is such a very peaceful endeavor, and Chuck, you were telling me, you were saying, Amanda, you have to suit up because when you stick your head in a beehive, this happens. Can you share what that is?
Sure. It's easier to experience than to explain, but imagine the essence of Mother Earth, I guess that's the easiest way to put it. And honeybees gather obviously pollen, nectar from all kinds of plant creatures, trees, pine trees. People don't realize that pine trees are important to honeybees, but so they gather all this product material, and while they're making wax, nectar for honey, propolis to seal their hives, it leaves an essence inside a hive that when you open it, especially on a nice sunny warm day during the summer, it's hard to explain, but if you stick your face in there, the essence is euphoric. And the first time I experienced that, I knew others had to. It's hard to explain. It's enough that in my research, because I want to understand it more, what is this that I'm experiencing? And I found old country, Europe, Russia, those areas, Germany, where they had created actually buildings that their beehives would be in. And some of them have vents that come off of their hives and into smaller buildings. And you can actually lay in there and meditate or just relax and just smell the smells, breathe the air. And it's said that it has healing power. It's hard to explain.
No, I think that, I honestly think you did a beautiful job of explaining it. And I feel like anybody here, I know I feel like sticking my head into a hive, and I'm allergic to bees. So yeah. And then one other thing I just wanted to bring up with you, Chuck, is that we talked about your acting and what that means to you. And if I were to hazard a guess, I use hazard because, you know, he's the head of emergency services. I like to use words like that when I'm talking to Chuck. But I would say that you want to do more acting.
Matter of fact, I just did a shoot yesterday, so that was an experience.
Did you really? Yeah. What was the shoot?
I was a Confederate soldier.
Nice. So, how interesting.
Yeah, that was different for me.
Yeah.
I would like to explore acting further. Absolutely. Maybe a little more in depth.
Well, if you want to see Chuck acting, you can check out the Film Fest website. We have one of Chuck was one of our
hunters
actors at one of our Film Fest a couple years ago.
The film was Hunters. Yeah,
that was good.
Hunters,
I saw that.
Hunters. Yeah, Hunters. You were in Hunters.
If I can figure out how to do it, everybody. I'll put a link somewhere that people can access this. So that brings us to Brad Sanders. And when you say our, you know, to whom are you referring? Do you want to introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about
Well, if you don't know me, I mean, everybody should probably know me by now. How long do I have, Amanda? Do I have like at least an
you
hour
have
to
30
talk?
seconds. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I do want to first off say that how proud I am that Amanda has put all this together. I mean, it's an amazing thing that,
Oh,
it's, very, very awesome that you started this, Amanda, and doing all this and doing the podcast and getting out there and doing this and bringing everybody together. I hope I am in the next conversation for next year too, and every year. So
thank you.
yeah.
Well, Brad had to hear for years, I talk about this or some variation of this. So he's been hearing me kind of talk about something like this for a while. So
It's
thank you.
outlet to being creative, and I agree with that. I mean, I've known Amanda for, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years or whatever.
So since I was born.
Since you were born, yes. I'm still trying to get the best friend status, but that's been taken. So it's really, really tough to break into that. So
Yeah, it ain't happening, Brad.
I figured I'm so much closer that I can just jump in anytime, but I can't.
Oh,
It's impossible. So, but yeah, my name is Brad Sanders. I work at the Central Bucks Chamber. Background is graphic design. And I kind of had a kind of sneak preview of what Amanda was going to talk about tonight. And I'm just excited about being here. And I had some, 2022 is going to be a little crazy for us, a little different. Talking a little bit about what Peter was mentioning about, life and people, what's happening to people. My mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer this year, and so that's been a big hurdle for us as a family. And something to really, I visited her last night, and she was I had a great conversation with her. It was just me and her, and we were just chatting. I am her favorite son-in-law, so I am her only son-in-law, but it's still up there. But we had a great conversation, and it's tough on the family. But and then tonight I went over to visit my brothers at my brother's house, and we just kind of sat in the garage and had a couple beers, and it was just a nice thing to just kind of not worry about things. And it was just two different things in my life, where I don't have to worry about anything. We just talk and not worry about anything. And the other side is, reality of life, and I'm looking forward to 2022. But at the same time, I think it's going to be a tough year. And with the podcast, I just really enjoyed being involved with it, and Amanda drawing out those questions that and those answers from her questions that I didn't think about, and I just I think it was probably her highest rated podcast that everybody listened to. So I don't know, but I really had a good time with it. And it's great to see, Amanda and I work every day together, and it's great to see this kind of this podcast developing into something really, really special and really cool. I think as it goes on, I think it's going to get better and better. And I enjoy being here and hearing everybody's stories and questions, and you know, I'm very thankful for being a part of it. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for those really kind words. And also, I think as you look toward 2022 and how it is going to be a challenging year, I think it points out to the word that I kind of didn't talk about, which is connections. And I think it's our tribes who help us through that, and our people. I mean, who we love and who we support on, you know, who support us, that help us and help us find meaning in those challenging times. Roseanne and I talk a lot about how we don't always have to have the happiest lives, because life is not happy all of the time, but we do want to live lives of meaning. That's really important. So sometimes in those really challenging years, you know, you just can search for meaning. And I also want to say, you know how Chuck's trying to keep his dogs quiet. I'm working hard to keep my husband quiet in the background. So, you know, if you see any like little eye movements, that's our signals, like, you know.
Amanda, I don't know why
Bring him
he's
in.
not sitting next to you and joining the conversation with us.
What was that?
I don't know why he's not sitting next to you and
He
joining
is
the
a-
conversation with us.
Yeah,
You know,
bring Victor over.
Yeah,
This
just for a
is not
minute.
his cup of tea.
Tell him I
Think
said
of-
hi. Bring him in.
I think of me as Dolly Parton, and think of him as that Carl guy who's her husband, who you never really see. Anyway, so now we're moving on.
Could I add something to that?
What was that?
Could I add something to that?
Oh, please do.
Me and Chuck Hall have talked behind the scenes before, and I starting to hear people talk about their, you know, experiences this year and hopes for the next. I don't know that I'm that great at advice, but whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, my career has exposed me to so much in my life. And I think I learned a lot and gained a lot of knowledge in the meaning of life. And I think I had an advantage at a younger age. So I guess all I want to say is just, as people are experiencing, to change how they look at their life in the future, but the best words is just use it to learn from. Don't allow it to dismantle you or slow you down. Never allow that, because days are short, life is shorter. And as long as we have moments like this in our lives, like Amanda has brought us together for tonight, or, you know, our family, our friends, people we meet tomorrow, the people that we love that we don't see after yesterday. Don't let that change who you are or how we move forward. That's all. Because it's important. It's very important. That's all. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Chuck.
You should be sorry, Chuck. That was ridiculous.
That was beautiful, Chuck. Thank you. Really beautiful. Really encouraging.
Yeah, that's powerful. And that's, you know, and nobody's interrupting, by the way. Say whatever you want, whenever you want. I appreciate it. So now we are moving on to Joanna Hararoska. Joanna, if you could
Hello.
introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe something you're taking away from 2021.
I can't even pick one. That's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm Joanna Hararoska. I am a holistic nutritionist, and I basically help people get out of pain. That's really my whole thing. And it could be emotional pain, physical pain, spiritual pain, probably mental pain too. And my goal is to really help more people experience joy. And that's been my challenge for this year too, is to experience the joy in the moment. And really, even though I think like everybody, I've had my ups and downs. There's times where I've been wondering, like, what the hell is my purpose? Am I even on my God's given purpose? And I feel like the the last few months have really been trying for me in that regard. And I've basically make it too complicated for myself. So it's really connecting to that, the God-given gifts that I was given, and just ask for the guidance of what is it that I need to do next. And I've done a fabulous job with what I need to do next with my physical body. And I've got arthritis in my right hip, which I already have had a hip replacement in my left hip almost 8 years ago. And this time I'm like, I'm not getting a hip replacement because the body can heal. And I haven't figured out the magic formula yet, but you know, the anti-inflammatory diet is part of it. Getting rid of the emotional experiences from childhood is another part. I wanted to tell you that one of the things that I wanted people to do is to make peace with chocolate, because that's what I was telling Amanda, like a day without chocolate is really a bad day. But in a way, I really do want people to make peace with chocolate, but it's really about making peace with their body, making peace with their childhood experiences, and making peace with their life so that they can actually experience the joy in the present moment and not let all that other stuff get in the way. And a lot of that has been what I've been working on a personal level, even with my hip. And even though I was diagnosed a year ago with you need a hip replacement, I kind of said, yeah, no, I think I'm going to go a different way, and I'm going to figure out how to heal this hip. And it's still got a ways to go, but I'm walking better, moving better, and I'm on the upswing of recovery rather than what everybody else gets which is down, 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 down. And I've already been to the down and coming back up. So I want to help other people in their downs to come back up and give them more than just hope. So there you go. That's my nugget.
That's a pretty good nugget. Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah, make peace with chocolate.
Make peace with chocolate. And yeah, I mean, I think we attach shame to so many things. We just do as human beings. We're always, shame is like a part of us. So
that's
it's
what
even
we're
that
taught.
simple. Yeah.
That's what we're taught. And those are the experiences we have. And it's like, okay, let me reframe that experience for you. And that's why I do a lot of the energy work, because that energy gets stuck in your body. And then that's what creates, you know, disease states. So
Yeah.
and we call them dis-ease states,
Yeah.
not disease.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
and I
that-
gotta tell you, I'm in North Wales. So I'm in what, 6 miles from Doylestown? So 6 miles
Okay,
from
that's
half of
perfect.
you.
I'm in Doylestown.
Yeah, so like 6 miles from half of you.
And Lorraine, who I'm about to introduce, I don't even understand this, Lorraine, because they say you're Lansdale, but it doesn't feel like Lansdale to me, because I went to Lansdale Catholic high school and that felt so far, and you feel like Chalfont, but
It's really technically Montgomeryville.
Oh, you know what? So Lorraine, you and I are neighbors, because I'm
Oh.
in North Wales, right on the south side of Upper State, three blocks in from County Line Road. And don't tell me you live, yeah, you're in Montgomeryville. so
don't
you're
even
like,
say your address. I feel like that would be bad.
you know, that would be bad, but it's like, you know, I'm very close to where you are.
How do
I
you
have a
explain
very
it?
popular podcast, Joanna. Everybody from everywhere is listening.
We're
We're in a
probably
good
like
spot.
neighbors.
We're in almost Chalfont.
You probably are neighbors.
We
Lorraine,
probably are.
can you introduce, and by the way, Lorraine, Chuck being head of EMS, this is not, I just have to say, Lorraine was years ago, I don't remember how long, Lorraine. Do you know
Like
how long?
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years ago, Lorraine was in a horrible car accident. It was really, really bad. And it took like, I remember 40 minutes, but maybe I made that up, to get her out of her car and medevaced to Hahnemann. And look, here she is.
Here I am.
So, so Lorraine, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Lorraine Kelchevsky. I live in Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania. I work at Dawson Hospital in registration. I wanted to be a nurse, but then the car accident kind of changed what I could physically do. So figure working at the hospital is good because I like the patients. You know, I do registration at the Women's Diagnostic Center. Now, for the last 5 years, I worked in the emergency department for, gosh, like 12 years, I think, before that. 3 kids, all of whom are now out of the house. My youngest one just left this past fall out for University of Pittsburgh. So my baby went the farthest. So I'm kind of adjusting to that. COVID was just kind of strange because, or like the past year, I worked through the whole thing, of course. You know, we were open not for screenings, but for diagnostic testing the whole time. And so this whole Zoom thing is new to me because I was in person all the time. Kind of strange because at times the hospital was full upstairs in the rooms, but my department and the main lobby and everywhere else, it was kind of dead. So that was, but my next year's goals are to kind of be taking care of myself. Because as Amanda mentioned, I've had lots of surgery right now. I'm in physical therapy twice a week for my back, which is related to all that. But when you're a parent, you kind of have to focus on your kids. Like, what do they need? What are they going to need? Planning ahead. So moving forward, like still worried about my kids, but I feel like it can be my time now to maybe take better care of myself. And to, I tend to be a hermit, because I'm tired, I don't feel good, whatever. But I want to kind of come out of that too and do more, because after being, where you had to stay in because of the pandemic, like socially, I was going to work with socially, stayed in. Now I want to do that more, see my friends more, just live more of a life, I guess, which sounds kind of strange, but that's how I feel.
That's great. So that is so wonderful. I'm just sitting here feeling thankful. Melinda and Peter, do you have any, it's been so long since you talked. Do you want to add anything? What do you think?
Given the opportunity to talk, I will always take it. Unfortunately for Melinda. Yeah, what I'm hearing from everybody is very resonates with me, certainly. It's just been a really rough time the past couple of years for all of us. And I keep coming back to this notion of not fighting what is coming at me. And the more I can absorb it and accept it and probe it, deeply probe it, drill down into it, the better off I am. And I'm happy that I've come to a point where I can do that. When I was younger, I felt like I just ran from things, or I denied them, or I medicated them. And now I really feel that it's just so important, because we all have a finite period of time to dig deeply into everything and just live your life the best, for whatever that means to you, but to realize that it's precious and it's fleeting is
That's great.
That's the truth for me, and that's what I want to continue to delve into.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. Does anybody, Chuck, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so Amanda, I'd like to hear you answer the same questions that you've asked us to answer.
That
What
is
was
an
the
awesome
question?
idea.
Well, I always have an answer because, I'm obsessively thinking about these things, as my friends know, all of the time. And what I learned, for me, for 2020, this whole pandemic was, it came with huge amounts of challenges, but it also came with something I hadn't done maybe ever, or at least not in a long time. And that is, I paused. I had a minute. Where I wasn't taking kids everywhere. I wasn't at an event. I wasn't producing a magazine. I wasn't doing all of the things that keep me like this churning. And so all of the things I had kind of talked about for many, many years, I was able to to do. So what I learned from 2021 is two things. I learned to say yes. So I had said no a lot. And I said no a lot because I'm a mom too, and I have a family and I have a full life. So I had enough on my plate. And when people would say, do you want to do this? I would say no. Even if it was coffee, no. The answer was no, because I couldn't fit it in. I had complete structure around my life. So when this happened, I said yes. And the other thing I learned is something that Natalie has taught me and told me. And Natalie, you probably know what it is because I say it all the time, but Natalie says, do it poorly rather than not doing it. And so, I made this website on my own, and it was very rudimentary. And I still said, hey, you guys, here's my website. And I put it out there for people to see. And I did a podcast, and I didn't fully know what I was doing. I started with Natalie, and we just hit record, and I was like, all right. So that's what I learned from 2021, to do it poorly rather than just not doing it, to take risks and to take chances. And then what I hope for myself and for everybody that I love in 2022 is that we will continue to expose our vulnerabilities in order to make our lives the best we can make them. I honestly think if you're feeling comfortable, you're probably not making the most out of life. And I think that there's power in discomfort. I don't think you have to live there. I think you can take a break, but I like to make myself uncomfortable. And so for 2022, I'm just going to keep trying to push the envelope, but I'm also going to try to get better at the things that I'm doing, because I have been very rudimentary. So that's my story for now. Thank you.
I think you'll have plenty of opportunities to experience discomfort in the coming year. And you come back to the old dictum of perfection is the enemy of the good. And that is, we all have to think about that.
We do. And, I know from having, you guys know my daughter, Clara, probably listening, but she was very close to death for a lot of years. And it was, when we lived in intensive care for half of a year, and that was actually our little home, as most of people who know me know. And so when I got home, I was still on a 24-hour, she had to be medicated every 2 hours, blah, 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 oxygen, the whole 9 yards. So I, of course, came home and read like Viktor Frankl's like Man's Search for Meaning, because I was like, what's this? What am I going through? And really, I just feel like two things I learned from that. And one is we are alive and we're all like here together talking. Life is good. That's how I look at it. And it sounds corny probably, but that's really how I feel. If we're alive, and I learned that from Clara, because the minute they might say she can't make it to the end of the week, but I was like, but she's alive now. That's the bottom line. I'm drinking this nice drink. I have my house and keeping my husband quiet in the living room. Oh, shoot, he talked. So I just feel like just finding that little minute of joy for me is what really makes life magnificent,
I have one other thing to add on with your about being alone or being connected. And that was one thing that I learned too, that I learned from childhood that I had to do it all by myself, even though I have, family of loving parents and, 3 sisters. I still had to do it. I still had to do everything on my own. And the reality is I don't. And that was a big lesson literally like a month and a half ago. And I've been trying to do it on my own. And I'm like, no, I have people to talk to. Why am I trying to figure this out myself? So it's that connection and knowing that I have other people to talk to. I don't have to figure it out on my own. I don't have to just read a book on my own. I don't have to do anything on my own. I could just reach out and make that connection and be out of my whatever perceived misery I thought I was in. Because somebody else is gonna point out the joy for me, right? Because I can't see it.
That is a really powerful statement, Joanna, because I know whenever I'm in crisis, I connect with somebody. You guys are all those people, so you guys know firsthand that I do that. And, you know, I think that we have a sense of pride sometimes about presenting this perfect exterior or life, and we're all just humans going through it. And I probably have an easier time asking for help because I'm the baby, as my sister up there knows.
I have a twin sister, so they're, you know, being crowded out a lot.
I ask for help before I even try to do it myself.
Yeah, when I
have
asked
the
for help in my
opposite
family, I got
problem.
criticism, so I had to work through that one for a long time.
Yeah.
So Amanda, I want to interject with something, and I will regret not saying this if I don't say it. So this may be an unfair challenge, but I would like to challenge you to consider launching an additional podcast in 2022.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. Every person here is so interesting. I feel like I want to ask all of you questions about things that you said during this. And so I have this idea in my head that you should create a second podcast called Amanda and Friends, where you don't have to carry the burden of the conversation, but you bring together friends who ask each other questions and talk about interesting things. So
I like that.
because everybody here is really interesting, and I'm sure in the year ahead, you're going to bring even more interesting people together.
So
I
are
love
you
that idea.
suggesting it as a one-on-one or with a bunch of friends? Like, you know, like we've got 10
No,
of us here.
like a bunch of friends to have a free flowing conversation. I mean, I think it would be better than The View. And Amanda, you're already the Oprah of Doylestown. So why
That's my
not?
dream. That's my dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a green screen. We can set up a nice little set. You know, we got a couch. You know, we can have Amanda on her own chair with the cue
I love
cards
this.
and everything.
I love it. I think that's great. I actually
I'm
do
in.
love the thought of that, tagging that on, because I do agree. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, I'm so thankful. Like, and I do have to say, I know amazing people. I am so happy about that. And can I say also, before we finish, to each one of you, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you indulging me and not, you know, I do come up with some, like, I want to do this. And I would totally expect people to say, you know, that's ludicrous. But I'm in this Zoom room with people who are game, you know, or who are up for it. And I so appreciate that. I appreciate each one of you, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, the thanks goes to you for bringing us all together.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you, everybody. I think we'll end it now unless I'm missing something. If I am, raise both hands, except for Melinda. She only has to raise one.
We just need one big hug, a group hug.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's all we need. One group hug.
sounds great.
Great meeting, everyone. Thank you, Amanda.
Likewise.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.